Dayen to get in the last month or so has decided to turn up the negative attack ads against Melak Kuros. Some heinous things have been said, calling her an anti-Semite, smearing her, highlighting a Colorado Polls article that was totally ridiculous, saying that Melak Kuros actually wants Jewish people to be harmed. They're playing a rough game. As we saw with Adriana Espaillat, not dissimilar to the Adriana Espaillat incident that took place against Daria Liza, where a lot of these candidates that don't have policies they can stand on, despite the many years that they've been in Congress, will oftentimes just open up the money faucet and increase in and engage in heinous smear campaigns against their much younger insurgent challengers. Ladies and gentlemen, David Dayen on the broadcast. What an honor. It's an interesting time to have you on. There is a lot of momentum on candidates that I'm a little out of breath. Sorry, I was just dancing. Sorry, this is I like to do both. I like to have fun, but then also get into the nitty gritty and the serious stuff. You have peace out on the American Prospect since last night, I believe. We're going to be talking about that. The Supreme Court came down with some very serious decisions today, and I wanted to start by talking about that and then maybe tie it even back to the reason for why I'm in Denver, Colorado, pushing for Melak Kuros and Julie Gonzalez to hopefully win their races. So let's start there. The Supreme Court, good or bad? What do you think?
Up or down? Big thumbs down today. 3 rulings today. One of them, they retained birthright citizenship, but really only by 1 vote. Kavanaugh said that the Constitution does not disallow regulations on birthright citizenship, but some statute does separately. So you really have 4 votes saying that the plain language of the Constitution that's in the 14th Amendment does not say what it says it is. It does. And that was the good ruling, right? So the other 2, one of them involved, or 2 of them involved trans athletes in sports, and basically said that states can put together any rule they want to ban that. And the other one, which is probably going to get less attention, is around campaign finance. So this was a case brought by the National Republican Senatorial Committee, which is the campaign arm for Senate Republicans. And they wanted to coordinate party spending with candidates and have unlimited amounts of spending. Previously, the parties could coordinate a certain amount of money, as I think it was $69,000 at the minimum, maybe a little bit more than that for Senate. They could coordinate a certain amount of money, but now there's unlimited coordination spending. What that means is the party arms, NRSC, the DCCC, and the Democratic side, the DNC, the RNC, they get all kinds of corporate money, and now they can legally use unlimited amounts of that corporate money and put it into candidate races as much as they possibly want. When you work on a coordinated basis with a campaign, you get cheaper rates. So like if a super PAC ad wants to put an ad on Denver television, they'll probably charge 10 times as much, up to 10 times as much for that ad that they would for an ad from a candidate. So now this is a way to funnel corporate money directly to candidates in coordination with the parties and get cheaper ad rates so that money goes even further. So it's a really bad ruling, kind of ends any pretense about limits on corporate money in elections, as if there was any already.
Yeah. So you don't believe that this is... you don't believe that the previous formation was a significant violation of the First Amendment, that corporations are people, and that people are, of course, inevitably going to communicate with one another, including when a person, a corporation, directly gets together with other corporations and creates a super PAC that can directly coordinate with the campaign now, rather than have to go through the previous formation, the previous route, which made it so that you had to go and look at the red boxes, or you had to
yeah, I mean, let's be honest, Hassan, the whole thing's a farce, right? A candidate says, I'm not legally coordinating with a corporate PAC. However, if you go to my website, I'll tell you exactly what that PAC should say, when they should run these ads, who they should appeal them to. I mean, it gets really, really intricate. If you go to any campaign website and look for the link that says media, and that link is the red box that shows you, and usually it's outlined by a red box, and it shows how that candidate is basically flouting the rule of no coordination with super PACs by telling them exactly what they want in those ads. And so, this was kind of a legal fiction anyway, that we weren't coordinating. But now it's the ability for parties to do this coordination in a way that basically multiplies the impact and the power of corporate money because they get the cheaper ad rates.
Yeah. Devastating day for
American
democracy, but then again, it's expected, considering
Tuesday. It's also a Tuesday,
Yeah, it's just
a devastating day, but it's just Tuesday.
Yeah. So speaking of the impact that this has had, even with the current formation before the Supreme Court decision, you wrote about how Dayen, who is a 30-year incumbent member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, has received a tremendous amount of outside expenditures, outside spending coming into this race in the last hour. Our suspicion, of course, is that this is directly tied to their internal numbers that they saw. This started last week or so, as Dayen in the last month or so has decided to turn up the negative attack ads against Maila Quiros. Some heinous things have been said, calling her an anti-Semite, smearing her, highlighting a Colorado Polls article that was totally ridiculous, saying that Maila Quiros actually wants Jewish people to be harmed. They're playing a rough game, as we saw with Adriana Espaillat, not dissimilar to the Adriana Espaillat incident that took place against Daria Liza, where a lot of these candidates that don't have policies they can stand on, despite the many years that they've been in Congress, will oftentimes just open up the money faucet and increase in and engage in heinous smear campaigns against their much younger insurgent challengers. And it hasn't really been successful, but they're still trying it. But they're aided and abetted by a tremendous amount of corporate expenditure coming from the outside. What do you make of that situation?
Yeah. Well, we already know that Dayen is a corporate-backed candidate. This is someone who's a member of the Progressive Caucus, been around for 30 years. And when my reporter brought me this stat, I almost didn't believe it, but it's true. 64% of Dayen's lifetime fundraising comes from corporate PACs. 64%. That's an unbelievable. This is over 15 terms of her career. So this is a candidate, despite saying that she supports Medicare for all, she takes money from the pharmaceutical interests, she takes money from the insurance companies, and despite being, nominally a progressive in a very left-wing district in Denver, there, she is a corporate-backed candidate. And so when she gets into trouble, who is she going to turn to? And sure enough, we have these, whether it's big tech, which is very suspected to be behind, I believe it's the 218 project, one of the PACs that is supporting Dayen, whether it's what they call pro-choice majority, which I believe that money, we know through documented campaign finance disclosures, that PAC and its umbrella sort of parent PAC known as EDW took $1 million from AIPAC. And then there was this third PAC called Mile High Accountability, and we couldn't get a lot of information about that PAC. And so it turns out they never filed a form saying who their donors were, which was required by law. And so the Campaign Legal Center put out a complaint saying, you're breaking the law, Mile High Accountability. You're not telling us who your donors are. So they finally, at the last minute, after the complaint was released, they file saying, here's who our donors are. And almost all of the money comes from a different 501c4 that doesn't have to release its donors. So there's a dark money PAC, and it's funded by a different dark money PAC. And so we don't even know who is funding that to try to save DeGette's bacon here. But it's probably consistent with the interests that has supported her entire career.
Yeah. What do you make of the conversation that's taking shape inside of the conversation that's taking shape inside of the Democratic Party right now? There are a lot of centrist Democrats that have come out and said, this is not us. These guys are Democratic Socialists. Maybe you should find your own party. They're really advancing this message, this narrative. Where do you think this will go? Do you think that the established Democrats are going to actively fight back against this insurgent wave of candidates? Or do you think that there will be more of a consolidation? I feel like Nancy Pelosi, for all of her faults and failures, was actually far better at taking this kind of momentum that took place with the squad in 2018 and packaging it under the big tent of the Democratic Party, whereas Hakeem Jeffries has seemingly created more friction that actually helps, I think, my candidates, our candidates, candidates that are insurgents. It makes them look better as well, instead of trying to bring them under the umbrella of the Democratic Party and then maybe even neutering some of their ambitions.
Yeah, it's definitely a different approach. I mean, Hakeem Jeffries, we know, back a few years ago, started a PAC with Josh Gottheimer, who's maybe the right-wing member of the Democratic House Caucus, that was specifically about protecting incumbents from left-wing challenges. So we know where Jeffries is at here. And it's funny to me to see, it's kind of like, what is a scandal, right? They pick out and choose tweets or past statements, past comments, and that's built up to be a big scandal because they can post the tweet and show it. But voting for the Lake and Riley Act, which dozens of House Democrats did,
yeah.
Nobody needs to distance themselves from that, right? There's no scandal there that you voted for the thing that is being used to abduct people off the streets, to house them in these horrible detention centers without charges. We've documented, I think, 20 deaths just this year in ICE detention facilities. That's not a scandal. But for some reason, a tweet from 4 years ago is a scandal.
Yeah. Speaking of scandal after scandal, as a matter of fact, you just brought up Josh Gottheimer. There is another target, for me at least, that the national progressive movement hasn't really been paying that much attention to, with the exception of the DSA, and that is Moskowitz seat. This is in Florida 25.
Oh, yeah.
It's a newly cut down district that was dummy mandered, to use a term that Hakeem Jeffries likes to use. It's actually far closer of a race where we have a real opportunity to unseat a potential Republican, even though it's like a plus 10 Republican district or something.
I think it's a
plus 7.
Yeah, I think it's plus 10-ish that went for Trump, but Biden won the district in 2020.
Yeah.
So it's a district that swung but could swing back.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, of course, is because earlier today there was a War Powers resolution for Lebanon. This was the War Powers resolution for Lebanon that Representative Rashida Tlaib put forward to basically stop Trump's unilateral war powers. And a similar bill obviously passed with Iran. Not to say that it's going to have any real impact in terms of curbing back Donald Trump's actions, because he's very clearly violated that War Powers resolution this past weekend when he bombed Iran instead of trying to advance the memorandum of understanding. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Josh Gottheimer, alongside 21 other Democrats, voted no on the War Powers resolution on Lebanon. And one of those Democrats was also Moskowitz. So there are a lot of these. Democrats.
You should mention Hassan, the candidate who's running against Moskowitz. His name's Oliver Larkin, and we've actually written about him at the Prospect. I haven't seen him in many other places, but it's one that's really interesting to watch. The whole South Florida Democratic Party is kind of a sewer. It's really problematic. You have Debbie Wasserman Schultz. When there's another seat like Moskowitz's that went for Biden and then flipped back, and there's a swing seat that she could win. Instead, she went running to a historically black district where she's now going to run, I guess, in Kentekla, and against 4 black candidates that were already running in that race.
Yeah, no, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I think, is another unique opportunity for the progressive insurgent movement, the Democratic Socialists, to have an impact in. And I think Florida is really interesting because no one is paying attention to it. There's not a lot of national attention being paid to Florida right now. And there's certainly not a lot of attention being paid to Florida from some of the other national organizations that normally would get involved. They've played it somewhat more safe than I would have assumed, even Justice Democrats. You got Elijah Manley, former Democratic Socialist, who's still running as a Democratic Socialist, but he was in DSA Broward, I believe, when he was 18 years old, who is trying to consolidate support amongst the other black candidates.
Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to do that, and so they're all going to be on the ballot. So that's going to be a tough road. I think Larkin is that's a very interesting race because it's a one-on-one against Moskowitz. But that's a late summer primary, August 18th. Anything could happen there. And it's gotten almost no attention from anybody. I mean, everyone's talking about Michigan. Everyone's talking about, maybe to a lesser extent, Minnesota, Wisconsin, that were the gubernatorial candidates, a DSA member. But no one's talking about Florida, and those races are really interesting.
Yeah, no, I think that even the more progressive like insurgent party movements at the national level have hyper focused on what they perceive are like easy winnable. Well, they're not. None of them are easily winnable districts because there's a tremendous amount of moneyed interest coming in and pouring into these races. But like, they focus more so on deep blue districts. But I think there is a real opportunity to flip some purple seats.
Well, I'll give you one that I have a piece coming out tomorrow about this, and it's in Michigan, in mid-Michigan. And the candidate's name is Will Lawrence. And he was an organizer with the Sunrise Movement, and then became a housing organizer in Lansing. There are 3 candidates in the race. 2 of them are establishment-backed. One was the ambassador to Ukraine, and the other guy was an ex-Navy SEAL. They're like classic biographies of who the Democratic establishment runs in a swing district. This is a district held by a Republican, used to be Alyssa Slotkin's district. But it's kind of the classic biography, right? Yeah. And those 2 candidates are running against one another. They, if you look at their red boxes, they're all about the other person. And yet Will Lawrence has led in 3 of the 4 polls that have actually been publicly released in the district. He put out his first stat of the cycle today. It's all about a data center that is going in that district and how he's the only one fighting it. He has a real shot to kind of flip this script and say that actually my populism, my economic populism, actually helps me in a swing district because I can bring together different coalitions than the normal kind of establishment, middle of the road candidate can. And so that one I think is going to be really interesting because he's kind of favored, and it's very under the radar, given what we've seen so far in terms of the polling.
No, absolutely. There are a lot of left populist candidates that are either DSA backed or affiliated or endorsed or adjacent that are making waves in making waves in supposedly purple districts and supposedly purple states, right?
Yeah, have
I
you
don't.
been up to see Villegas
I've
in
yet to
Central
I've yet to
Valley?
hang out with Villegas. We got Villegas, and then we also have uh, my Vang as well,
My Vang,
and
sure. Yeah.
also
Hmm.
Angela Gonzalez as well, Gonzalez Torres. So there are.
Yeah, that's a lefty district in LA. But yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, I
Yeah.
mean,
I
yeah,
mean,
I'm just saying, like, in general, there are a lot of candidates that haven't gotten the national attention, but I think,
mhm.
like, this sort of affiliation, this sort of association will offer them that national attention. And what I have seen, at least in my experience, is that even the negative association with someone like myself, that like the media tries to frame as a negative association, ends up working in their favor in every district, including statewide
Right.
districts, as we've seen with
And
Abdul El Sayed.
and on the opposite side of that, all the money that's coming in has had kind of a backlash as well. I saw a report today from Public Citizen that this is another stunning stat. 1/3 of all the corporate money that has been spent since Citizens United's ruling in 2010, a third of the money in that 16-year period
Yeah.
has been spent in this primary cycle.
Yeah.
And that's only half the year. It's only half the primary cycle.
I
We still
know.
have 20 some states to go.
It's unbelievable.
But there is, compared to 2022, compared to 2024, there is diminishing returns. The pro-Israel PACs won pretty much every race in those other two cycles. The crypto PACs won practically every race they played in those previous two cycles. This year, it's about 50-50. And, you can see that as good or bad, but it's much different. It's much more diminishing returns. And when you're talking about these sums of money and how they almost are canceling themselves out because everyone knows, the story of the races are not sort of what's in those ads, but the fact that those ads are out, who's behind them, how these PACs are trying to hide their support and basically try to deny the public the transparency of knowing who is funding these things. I think that has ended up really reverting back on the candidates who they're trying to support and giving, a lot of help to candidates that on the progressive side of things.
I think that is true. I think there is a lot more of a diverse media diet out there for the average person interested in the primaries now more than ever. Because if you were to only get your information from MS Now or CNN or ABC, CBS, they rarely factor in where the outside expenditure is coming from or what that says about a particular candidate. Whereas people like myself, people like yourself, and also other organizations like APAC Tracker, for example, are so on the ball when it comes to identifying exactly where this money is coming from and what that says about the track record and potential future policy agenda of these establishment Democrats, including with like Drop Site News, that will hunt down exactly where these APAC shell corporations are coming from. That I think we have a much more educated electorate that is definitely deeply invested in identifying who to vote for and why they mustn't vote for certain candidates. But then I think more importantly, there's a lot of legwork now, unlike ever before, with DSA's ground game that we've seen in both New York City and all these other districts, including in Denver, Colorado. That is able to outcompete the negative attack ads that are coming in. We've seen tremendous success in our phone banking initiatives that we've done in the last couple of days. I believe 500,000 doors have been knocked. I mean, like an insane number.
In that district.
I believe 500,000 or something
district?
insane in
Wow.
Denver, Colorado. Like, or is it the phone banking numbers? It could be the phone banking numbers that I'm mixing up.
Right,
Hold on,
right.
let me refer to it before I give fake news. Before I do fake news here, hold on.
I mean, I think the point you're making as you look that up, it's the difference between organized money and organized people.
Yeah,
So what DSA in particular, but also the Working Families Party and some of these other
500,000
groups.
phone calls. Yeah, sorry.
Phone calls. Okay. What I think these groups have been able to do, Justice Dems and et cetera, they've been able to do two things. Number one is they have masked those volunteers that have, those conversations are much more impactful. When you're on the doors, you're in front, face to face with someone, you're having a conversation. Those are really, really important things to do for a campaign. And it's simply easier when you have a volunteer force at your back than for some candidate that would have to basically pay volunteers to do that. The second thing that they've done this year that's been unique, and it's Justice Dems, but it's also Working Families, and it's also this thing, American Priorities, that has come in as a counterweight to some of the AIPAC spending. They have been able to at least allow these candidates to hang a little bit on the air, right? So instead of being blown out with 4 million on one side, just to throw a number out, 4 million on one side, nothing on the other, now it's like 4 million to maybe 1.5 million, right? And so at least the message is being countered a little bit in the paid media, on YouTube ads or wherever, so that it's just a little bit of pushback, and they don't have the airwaves all to themselves. And so I think that has been, I think all of us would agree that the best system would be a public financing of campaign system.
Yes.
But if that's not going to happen, you can't tie yourself with two hands behind your back and be, the purity police and then lose all the time. So I think Democrats, progressives and, DSA types are getting smarter about the idea that we're not going to unilaterally disarm. We're going to fight. And when we win, hopefully we can make a better system in the aftermath, provided we have a different Supreme Court.
Yeah. One of the things that I always go back to, of course, is that the people power doesn't come unless the policies are there. No one is going to get activated for Diana DeGette or Adriana Espaillat. You can have a machine. You can try to turn on that machine, as we saw with Adriana Espaillat, a machine that is directed exclusively to reinforce his power, and it fails, right? Because having having great policies, having a great message overall that centers the working class will not only turn out the door knockers and the people who are motivated to help you out because they want to see that change in Congress, but it also is a good message that you can spread far and wide that will actually draw turnout. The negative campaigning, on the other hand, is only going to depress voter turnout. It's only going to lead to further apathy. And that is a big part of the reason why this is not a problem that I don't think establishment Democrats can actually fight back against by simply making up the enthusiasm gap with a tremendous amount of money, because the message is not there, because the policies are not there, because the advocacy is not there. There's also obviously the structural burden that they carry, that they have to be associated with the last decade or so of incompetence, the last decade or so of all of the policy failures, right? Whether it be losing to Donald Trump, you have to own that. And there is an outsider advantage here.
I agree. And I think as we think about, because, certainly already we're having some of these candidates who are going to move into the government, right? I mean, the ones in New York, Chris Robb and Adam Homowy and Anna Lilly is already there. There's going to be a need to move from opposition to proposition, right? To move to what are you doing? And I think what we're seeing in New York City with the rent freeze passing, with childcare slots opening up, is building an actual vision of what a successful agenda that actually delivers for people looks like. And I think the people going into Congress, obviously it's more difficult in Congress because you have 435 people. You're not just one mayor, but you can point to that and say, this is actually the vision. This is what we can actually build.
Yeah.
And if you give us enough people, we can get that done.
Absolutely. David, before I let you go, because I have to rush over to a canvas with Chris Rabb, actually, for Milot Kuros in a little bit, I wanted to also briefly talk about the birthright situation. The Supreme Court came down on a 5-4 decision, which I think is entirely too close for comfort, with protecting birthright, which is, one of the most safeguarded, one of the most contested, and therefore one of the most safeguarded aspects of the Constitution. And obviously, a lot of Republicans are frustrated. Can you elaborate on what took place there?
Well, I mean, this was kind of a moonshot. It played out differently than I think a lot of conservative ideas that get into the bloodstream play out. Normally, they take a very long, slow, deliberate path to get something through the Supreme Court. So earlier this week, the ability for the president to fire any appointed commissioner at the Federal Trade Commission, but really at any agency, except for the Fed, because we don't want to mess with our money. That was the result of a decade of law review articles and, putting things into the media and getting things in symposia at Federalist Society conferences. They spent years and years and years working on that until they had the coalition in place on the court, and then they put it together and they got it. This was Donald Trump sent tweet, right? that was it.
Yeah.
And then birthright citizenship is up there at the Supreme Court. And there were a couple sort of half-assed articles that a couple professors who kind of debased themselves put together. It wasn't like this long, slow, deliberate process. And yet it got 4 votes, at least on the constitutional issue.
The constitutionality, It's 6-3 technically, but it's
6-3 technically, yes. So if it's that accelerated, that what it tells me is this isn't going to go away. Yeah. That they're going to keep, sort of working this in the courts. They're going to keep putting together arguments to try to convince Kavanaugh, to try to convince Barrett, to try to convince John Roberts, and they're just going to keep at it. And in 10 years, if they still have the same numbers, they'll try again. And so birthright citizenship, while safe for now, is not really safe in the future if you know about the ways in which conservatives go about getting legal changes basically sanctioned by the Supreme Court. Yeah. So it's very dangerous.
Can you talk about the distinction between because people are confused in the chat. For those of you who might not understand, what is the decision that was 5-4 versus the decision that was 6-3?
So there's the question is, was Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship legal or not? And the question is legal, if it's legal or illegal, by what means? So there were 5 votes that said it's illegal because of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which says all natural born citizens are citizens of the United States. Brett Kavanaugh said, no, that isn't the reason why I think it's illegal. I think it's illegal because there was a statutory decision that was made by Congress later that made birthright citizenship legal. So, what he's saying is that can be changed. A statute can be changed by Congress. And whereas the Constitution would need a constitutional amendment, and that's a much higher bar. So there are really only 5 votes for the constitutional issue here. And that means any one change. So if Republicans win in 2028 and Sonia Sotomayor steps down, there's your one, right?
Yeah.
Or not even steps down, but if she dies in office, whatever it is. So that's what a knife's edge we're on here. And it's incredible because if you look at the 14th Amendment, the language is clear enough for pretty much everyone in this country to know what it says. Yeah. Except for Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, and Sam Alito, who I guess retired for a minute here today, but then
Yeah, that was interesting.
NPR took it back. Yeah,
NPR claimed he was retiring, only to turn back and decide that he wasn't retiring. That was interesting as well.
yeah.
In any case, you can't hide. You're in the camera no matter what.
Yeah,
just,
you
just
are.
come in.
You're in the shot.
As Marge is here, my cam op and producer. We have
got
to
it.
we have to head out soon. David Dayen, thank you.
How is it down there? And what do you think is going to happen?
Beautiful. It's a beautiful sunny day. 89 degrees. There's an air quality alert, but it's a beautiful day to go out and door knock. It's a beautiful day for Democratic Socialists to win office and win power in this country. And I'm gonna
You're
try
confident.
my very best to keep pushing. But thank you, David Dayen.
All right.
What do you want to shout out? American Prospect?
Yeah, totally. Prospect.org. Check out our print issues. Get a piece of paper delivered to your mail. Prospect.org/subscribe. Sign up. We've got a lot of great stuff coming for the rest of the year, looking at this blue wave, this socialist wave, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to keep every day at prospect.org hammering this and looking at some of these races. Like I said, I got a good one on Michigan's 7th District, Will Lawrence, tomorrow.
And you asked me if I was confident, and my answer is it's never over until it's done. I always feel the same level of vulnerability and stress that I did with Zohran Mamdani's election. That I did with the New York City DSA slate, but that's a healthy feeling to have, I think, and those things have panned out in our direction every single time. So hopefully we'll be able to notch another victory here today.
All right,
bye,
play like you're 10
David.
points down. There you go.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, everybody. That was David Dayen.